Now it's recording, so we'll talk in Portuguese. Fala pessoal, tudo bem? Ramon Farias falando. Estamos com mais um podcast, dessa vez internacional, com o professor Bob Emiliani. Hi, professor. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you.
I will not ask you to talk any word in Portuguese because I didn't ask you before.
Yes.
But if you want to know now, good afternoon is boa tarde.
Okay.
we are talking. It's an afternoon, but our podcast is very happy to receive you here to talk about some continued improvement methodologies like TPS, Lean, and some polemic things. We have a lot of people here in Brazil that follow your journey, and I think already had your books. And we can talk a little bit about it.
Okay, that sounds good. Let me adjust the light here a little bit. Okay.
Thank you for your attention to receive these.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be with you today. So thank you for inviting me, and we'll answer your questions and whatever else, wherever the conversation goes.
Good. Bob, you were a seasoned Lean practitioner, but I don't want to start right now our conversation talk about Lean or TPS or any other continuous improvement methodology. I would like to ask you, what is your definition of continuous improvement? What it means for you?
What it means to me is goes back to the Kaizen training from 1994, many years ago. To me, it means a continuous curiosity, trying to recognize and understand problems, trying out new ideas to solve problems as you recognize the problems, and of course, problems happen every day. So continuous improvement to me is that. It means not ignoring problems. It means also to take action quickly. So it is to continuously be curious, to recognize problems, to come up with ideas to correct the problem or improve the process or situation, to do this on a daily basis as a part of one's practice and one's commitment, and always to take action quickly. This is something we were taught by Shingijutsu consultants back in the mid-90s, was when you recognize a problem, you work on it now. You don't put it for next week or next month because you have customers that have complaints about your product or service, the bad quality, the long lead time, cost too much, and so on. So you must find ways to correct this problem now and do it with your team. And in my job currently in academia, we try to do that, but a lot of the problem relates to sort of individually what you do as a teacher. So that's what the continuous improvement means to me.
Yeah, and this is the most challenge, I think, from the continuous improvement methodology to be faster on the reaction of the problem. It's not an easy task.
Yes, and also just to be curious. When I was trained in TPS by Shingijutsu, it was amazing how these sensei, how they think about the shop floor. They think about the shop floor as the way an astronomer thinks about the universe. They have endless curiosity about the shop floor and what goes on in the shop floor, just like astronomer has endless curiosity of the Earth and the sun and the stars and the universe and the galaxies and the everything like this. Endless curiosity. I've never seen anything like it before in my life. Just how they saw the shop floor as just full of ideas and interest. It was amazing. It is amazing. There's still a lot like that.
Yeah, it's a thing that we need to be more curious.
Yeah.
I'm not have this long journey as you have, but I'm also do some classes, and I'm a professor. Not 100% of my time, but I know that as a professor and a researcher, you must suffer a little resistance on some points. In Brazil, when a person only teaches, people usually to say that they didn't work, they only teach. I
Yeah.
know that's not true, but it's part of the resistance.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
Go ahead.
No. Finish your question.
Other main question, your work, because today you are only on the academy. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience on the battlefront, on the shop floor? As I know you have a long trip on the shop floor.
Yeah, I have something like 35 years of work experience, and all of that except the seven or 8 years I was a manager at different levels. But all of it is on the front lines, and people tend to think a university professor is somebody high up here, but the reality is we are people on the front line. So I had work in sales, in engineering, and in teaching, and these are frontline jobs. You deal directly with students. It's not like it's like you work in a store. There's somebody comes to your store, they want something, you answer questions, tell them about it, and so forth. You are a frontline employee, and so these kinds of experiences partly shape my thinking when it comes to doing research. I never lose connection with the real life work experience when I do my research. And in lean leadership and in lean management and in classical management and things like this. So these areas of research are informed by my practical work experience. And when you have the work on the front line, you experience some of the bad thinking and inconsistencies and bad decisions and the closed minds that exist, among sometimes your colleagues, but also among the leaders of the organization. And so you have to, deal with this. And then when you become a manager, you get closer to these oftentimes unusual way to think, the bad decisions and the poor reasoning and so forth. And so anyway, so I have this combination of experience of 15 years in industry is now 20 years in academia. And so the 15 years in industry, the last 7 or so were related to TPS and lean and so on. And so this forms the basis of how I think and how I do my work. And yes, people will criticize and say, oh, you're just an academic, but I didn't start out in academia. I started out in industry. Spent 15 years in industry before I went to academia. And so there's no way you can spend 15 years in industry and leave this experience behind, because I had jobs where I was a manager for a feeding assembly floor, and this is they're not joking around when parts are late and so forth, whether it's from internal manufacturing, which I was responsible for, or whether it was supply chain, which I was also responsible for. And so these things make a big impression on you that you never forget. So it is wrong to see me as a theoretical guy who thinks just in terms of academic thing. And the university I teach also is a very practical oriented university. It's not what we call here in the US class 1 Carnegie Research Institution. This is things like MIT and the big top universities. I teach in a place where we have a much more practical orientation, and our students most of them go straight into industry. If they're not, many of them are already in industry. So the thing I find interesting too is because you get people will say you're talking theory and so forth, but it's a lot of anti-intellectualism, and they confuse opinions with facts and so forth. But I always say that let's talk about theories here, because I see business leaders, they operate with theories such as there's no cost to treating employees or supplier poorly, that it is better to lead by opinion rather than fact. So these are theories by which leaders lead. And I always say that the business person is more theoretical and also uses more bad theories than academic. And these bad theories from in industry go from one leader to another, one generation to the next. So they, people say, "Oh, you're academic, your theory." This is just to try to diminish and discredit, what your work. And this is the kind of stuff that happens, and I think there's no preventing it. That's just what some people will do.
And I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I think we have these both positions to have a strong or a macro view of the system in general. If you have only the academia, maybe you will not see what those guys on the shop floor are suffering. And if you are only on the shop floor, you will not have the theory that support all
That's exactly right. And what the in academia, you have to do your job teaching, of course, but you also have to do research, and it's also a big part of research is thinking about what's going on. And when I was in industry, you're too busy doing your job to really understand, why are these things happening? Why is things so crazy and chaotic? And why do we make the same mistake over and over and so forth? So I had questions like this. And another big question was, why doesn't every leader adopt lean management? It's so much better than the traditional way of doing things. So it's hard to understand and why these things exist when you're in the company, when you're in the boiling hot water of the company, and you're in operations trying to feed an assembly floor and so forth. And so the university job lets you sit back and to think, and to read a lot and to read what other people think, and to synthesize all of this and put it together into your own ideas and your own contributions about why these things happen, what's causing these things to happen. We have a phrase, to peel back the onion, to get to the root cause, to understand what's driving this kind of crazy things that go on in business. And so, yes, it allows you to step back and observe. And a lot of what I do is, observe what's going on in social media and so forth. Sometimes I get criticized because, Bob doesn't do as many sharing and as many likes as he should of other people's work. And that's because I mean, perhaps I should, but basically I'm out there observing what's going on in that environment. Then there's observation when you go visit companies, and then there's conversation when you talk to students, because most of my students are older. They're in a graduate program getting a master's degree, so they're usually 25 to 55. And so a lot of conversations with them about what their work is, what's going on their front line, and visits to their companies and so forth. But yeah, this is the thing. When you're in academia, people have a preconception that now you just are thinking about only
theories.
Stupid theories, stupid things that don't matter in the real world. And that's incorrect. You have a cell phone because of a lot of academic people figure out things. And that's why this cell phone exists and Zoom exists and so forth. But anyway.
And I think both sides are very important. On the company, for example, we have a lot of engineers from B.E.N. which needs to go to the shop floor to see if their theory is okay,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was weird.
And you need people to put the ideas that come out of academia into some kind of product or practice that is useful to humanity.
Yeah.
Hopefully, sometimes
Yeah.
not.
And just the curiosity, when we goes to the university that you teach, we can see the figure of the book of Marchenko. What they says, everything I know about Lean I learned in the first grade. Do you know this book?
Yeah.
When
Yes.
the when the father goes to the first grade with his little daughter, we can see the same things there.
Yes. And it's having a young mind and asking why.
Yeah.
And when you're a child, this is something that Sensei Nakao-san teaches us, is you have to think like a 10 or 11-year-old. He emphasizes before you get interested in boys or girls, because after then you have start on with your preconceptions. But before then, when you're 9 or 10 or 11, you always, as an adult, you have to keep this way of thinking of a 9 or 10 or 11-year-old, to have the curiosity to ask, why is the sky blue? Why is what makes a car run? And so forth. What's going to happen when the sun blows up? All these good kind of questions that the young child would ask, and that's essential for having a Kaizen mind.
Yeah. One thing that I heard in our conversation is that in 1984 you have the real contact, or you have the subject that shake your mind
Oh
for
yeah.
for those years. Uh, do you think that this message that you received in 94 change your life completely, and it is impacting you now in your books?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this was a big impact, but prior to that, I had been spending 1994, at least 3 years prior, and for about 5 or 6 years after, studying Eastern philosophy, Taoism, um, uh, um, Confucianism, and so forth. And this was important because I had developed sort of a basic way of thinking about things that was then aligned with what I was learning from the Kaizen consultants. And so it was not a big change for me in terms of how to think. But what it did do is it reinforced um, maybe something that was a little bit there to begin with, plus the study of Eastern philosophy, plus then the exposure to Kaizen and TPS. And yeah, and then I started to read many other things by many other authors. Everybody reads The Lean Thinking by Womack and Jones and The Machine That Changed the World. And I read read articles and books by people for leadership and organizational behavior and organizational development, and so on and so on. And then the classic Lean books by, Ono and Shingo, and just everything I could find. For years, I had a subscription to the Nikkei, the Japanese business newspaper, so I could, read about what Toyota was doing and how they were thinking and what decisions they were making and so on. So I was a tremendous, absorption of all of this knowledge in combination with my work experience. And that has a big impact on my research and writing, absolutely. And how I teach as well, because I've been bringing, since I joined academia in 1999, I bring the idea of applying lean principles and practices to teaching. And so I wrote a little book called Lean Teaching, to describe how I have done what I have done over the last 15, first 15 years of teaching.
It's very good. And as you have this contact, do you think that everybody needs a kind of sensei or a kind of elder to give some instructions or something to help on this journey?
I think it helps a lot, because it's very difficult to, um, it's difficult to write this in books, the kinds of things that they teach you and tell you. And so because of this, I took on the assignment of being the uh, author, co-author, or lead author on 2 books that describe Shingijutsu Kaizen, because the existing books out there really don't talk about Kaizen the way I had learned it. And they don't give you a sense of the energy and the enthusiasm. They don't give you a sense of, it's not just cost reduction. You're trying to affect changes in relationships and time and space, and just changes in how resources are utilized and so on, and learning how to simplify things instead of making things more complex and so on. And so I decided it was important to produce the 2 books, Kaizen Forever and Shingijutsu Kaizen, to explain these things. But it's still, though, when you are able to spend hours like I was with Sensei Nakao and his colleagues and hear what they're saying, it's an amazing experience. So sometimes when I go visit with Mr. Nakao, I feel pretty good about myself that I know a lot and I'm, a little confident and so forth. And then when I meet Mr. Nakao, in 5 minutes, I feel like an idiot. So stupid. I don't know anything. I have so much more to learn. It's really remarkable how, the depth of knowledge that many senseis have. No, not all. Some not so good, but the best ones are just an unbelievable amount of learning. And when you think you've absorbed something, you have a conversation about something you may think simple, like 5S. But one thing people don't understand is the 5S is related to just in time. The need for 5S was related to trying to achieve just in time. And so when they talk about 5S in relation to just in time, and you've heard the stories and you understood how it works in just in time, says then 6 months later you have another conversation like this, and you learn completely new things.
Yeah.
It's astounding. So yeah, I think a sensei is a big help, but they, some are benevolent and do this for free. I spend a lot of time on Zoom to try to help people out. I'm not saying I'm a sensei, but just try to help guide people. But usually this costs some money. It's not
Yeah.
cheap. It's not cheap, but I think it's depending on what you're trying to achieve, it's well worth it. If you're trying to, really make a big impact, then it's worth it.
Yeah, and at least if you have a master or an experienced guy to or girl to ask some
Yeah.
points, it can worthwhile.
Yep. And there's to my knowledge, there's not many female sensei. There is one that I know of. I'm sure there's more, but there is more. In fact, I don't know why I'm saying there's one, but anyway, in terms of Shingijutsu, there's a sensei in Seattle, Washington, that's associated with Shingijutsu, and there are others you see in the Lean Enterprise Institute. They have Lean Sensei women, so there's 5 or 6 there who have a lot of experience in
Yeah.
different areas.
In Brazil, we are seeing more women start working with Lean. It's not common in the past, and we are seeing these right now. And I think with those kind of diversity and things like that, have the women taught on Lean maybe can transform Lean for better because they can do a lot of things together. Women we can not do a lot of things together.
Yeah, and
In the same time.
I'm sure there is, within a company, because there's, you don't know these women who are doing wonderful work to lead Kaizen and so forth, but they don't get, they work inside the company, so we don't know about them. But I wish we would, because they are role models for leadership for other women.
Yeah. We're talking about Lean and TPS, and one thing that I'm feeling mainly nowadays is that we already have the word divided. We see Democrats, Republicans, communists, capitalists, Lakers, Spurs. I don't know. In Brazil is Flamengo, Fluminense, the soccer teams. And now we are seeing this division on the social media, mainly in the social media regarding to TPS and Lean. We already know that, or I don't know if everybody knows, but I think most people know that TPS are Lean is a derivative of TPS. And even in, I can talk about Brazilian Toyota plant. They don't talk about TPS or Lean every time they need to talk about continuous improvement. They call Lean. And we never heard TPS. They don't care about that. They only know what they need to do. Do you really think we have an antagonism between TPS and Lean at the main point of we see people not complain about the work, because complain about the work of other people, it's normal, because we do this to get some improvements. But the main thing is, like in the politician or on the politics, we're seeing people denigrating people's work, as you face it with your work. We see also people denigrating other people's works in order to defend or to support a cause. Do you see that it's normal, or I don't know if this division caused it?
Well, I mean, I think this is the kind of thing that happens because people are not perfect, and some of this is unavoidable. There's no rule against criticizing or denigrating somebody's work. I wrote a little book called Critique of Lean, where I pointed out problems with Lean, but I did it from a fact-based perspective. I didn't just offer the opinion. I said, no, here's the supporting evidence to support my argument, to say that here's why TPS and Lean are different, why Lean is a derivative interpretation of TPS, and in some ways not a very good derivative interpretation. But people for many years were told Lean and TPS are the same. In my view, that was a deception. Does it matter? Maybe it does not. There's lots of important differences, but maybe it doesn't matter. I think a lot of good things can be achieved with Lean, but what I see is that there's a better business result with flow, with just in time, because this, why do TPS or Lean if you don't have as an objective to have material and information flow and to achieve have just in time? Because otherwise you just have classical management with Lean tools applied in there that doesn't produce anything better other than more efficient batch and queue processing. So when I visit companies, I see mainly some Lean tools used, but no evidence of material or information flow. You still see the bureaucracy and the delay, the queue time between steps in the process, and so on. So some of this, criticism or denigration, I think, is part of a process of exploration and asking why. Some of it, however, is just to be negative, to discredit and diminish somebody's work. So there's a mean spirit associated with this, which is not the way of TPS thinking, is not to have, you don't have a mean spirit. So when you have a mean spirit with regards to denigrating specifically based on opinion and not facts and so forth, then this is not understanding the what we understand as a Toyota way and so forth, or just the mindset behind progressive management. But criticism that is based on the facts and so forth is very clearly just doing what people are taught to do, which is to ask why, like the 9 or 10-year-old child, asking why. We're trying to clarify and correct misunderstandings. But there's a lot of passion around Lean and TPS and so forth, and it's kind of, you are right when you say it's like, the football teams in Brazil and so forth, that it's, you have your team that you root for, and I know in America we have teams here, sometimes they lose, they win one game out of 20 for 10 years, they lose all the time, but they still, people come to the game, and that's their team, no matter what. And that's just part of being human. I think the denigration is just an expression of the passion, but it's not a constructive expression of the passion, because again, usually there's no facts, it's just an opinion.
Yeah, I think if we can do a comparison, we will not do a comparison with football game. We will put everybody in octagon and do they fight on the Ultimate Fight Championship.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not worthwhile see some discussions. But I will not take a lot of your time. I just have more 2 questions. I will.
Yeah, sure.
We planned to do a more conversation, but I would like to have, maybe if you have time, other conversation, other time. Let the people ask us to do this again.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we can do that. Sure. But let's finish the questions.
So where we are failing on Lean journey, it must be always or nothing, or we can have a middle term to not to do these kind of fight or divisions happening in a lot of time.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I'm not sure what the middle ground looks like here, to avoid this fighting and the division. I think some of it is an educational process, as I said. I think it's important to understand Lean and TPS are not the same, but I also think it's important for you to decide, or for somebody to decide what they want to do. Maybe somebody decides they want to be closer towards the thinking and practices of TPS, and others like to be more closer to the thinking and practice of Lean or something else. I've seen this, happen before. That there's documentation from the early 1900s. The same thing happened with scientific management, between the scientific management community and the efficiency engineers. And the scientific management did not like the efficiency engineers, and the efficiency engineers basically said that scientific management is not what the president of companies want. We're giving them what companies want. This seems to be a kind of a natural course of action or activity with people. There is no, Lean is not a legal document or TPS that says this is the law.
Yeah.
And even if it was, it wouldn't work because people interpret the law differently over time.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing. So what people will do is they'll experience some success or failure or whatever and move on. And then, I don't know.
I know,
Let's do that.
I know that it's not under our scope, but I asked you something when it was off, and I would like to ask you again. In my opinion, and it's my opinion, people who are listeners, just to say it's my opinion. I think that one, I don't know if it's seen is a huge word, but one thing that maybe Toyota or Ono don't thought is how do you spread this kind of thinking for other companies? Because indeed, I cannot see TPS working in other companies, which is not another Toyota. And even if you are in another Toyota plant, you see a different TPS working.
Yeah.
It's not the sense of TPS.
Well, in Ono's writing, he thought TPS could apply to any company. And maybe because he understood TPS so well, he did not understand all the little details that people would find hard to understand, or the details that don't translate well or interpret well from Japanese to English or Portuguese or any other language. But he did, to some degree, so he may have been too optimistic to say it applies anywhere anybody can replicate TPS. But on the other hand, he knew that there would be problems with that. And some of his close colleagues, he suggested to them to create a consulting business to teach people lean. And he gave them specific instructions that, the money you make should cover your costs and you should not, charge so much money and so forth. Your mission should be to help create a better world and better planet by eliminating waste and so forth. But he understood that people needed some training, face-to-face, one-on-one training, the way they learned it and continue to learn it in TPS with a lot of, face-to-face, one-on-one training. You have a coach, you have a sensei to teach you, to guide you, and so on. Perhaps he didn't realize that, how many companies would be interested in TPS and later the, derivative interpretation of lean. He must have had some idea that this is, not must have, he wrote, this is not easy, it's hard to do. So, that's.
Yeah, I know that it's a huge challenge to follow 100% of the knowledge that we try to extract from Toyota. And the one thing that I used to say is that it's not a problem to talk, I'm doing lean, because if you are inside of GE, I probably people who don't want to hear or something about Toyota that is a competitor.
Well, right. But I will tell you the best examples that I've seen of Toyota-like business, which is not just operations, but how the business runs overall, sales and marketing, HR, so on. The best examples of business that I've seen are kind of replicas of a Toyota-like management system. They're not, of course, they're not Toyota, but it's high fidelity, close to what the Toyota is like in terms of, how the business runs. And these companies will usually refer to themselves as, we underwent a lean transformation. They don't say a Toyota transformation. Mm-hmm. So they use the word lean, because this is the common word. But if you look at their policy deployment and how they structure their operations and their other functional areas and how they eliminate queue times in every process and so forth, not just operations, but HR, IT, whatever, it looks very Toyota-like. And almost always, those companies were mentored. They had Kaizen consultants like Shingijutsu or some retired Toyota people to guide them, or as consultants or as mentors or as coaches. And so basically those mentors and coaches and so forth are teaching other people what they learned. And sure, there's a little changes here and there, but it's more similar than different, is what I see. So
yeah. I swear, I promise that I am finishing.
okay, yeah, go on. Let's next question. We finished.
With the advent of social media, now we can find a lot of gurus and specialists in Lean or even in TPS. Most of them are on the social media, seem to look down the other people's works. They argue people that who do all efforts to make Lean happen or to make continuous improvement happen in their organization don't do the real Lean. Sometimes they use a copy paste of your work out of context. Not only in Brazil, I have a lot of friends in India, for example, who I can see your work spreading through there. We have a lot of Indian guys at the company who knows real Lean book series. And we see a lot of words picking it out of context. Where do you weigh on these?
There's without social media, things will be taken out of context no matter what, whether it's the words or the pictures or anything else. It's the nature of social media to be heard and to advertise oneself, and I know I do that, and so they get criticism for that. But it's the nature of social media to try to find a way to stand out, I think, even subconsciously, whether you intend to or not. I mean, my social media post, to me, I'm trying to share what I've learned. My working objective since going into higher education is to document everything I know and share it with people. And I try to do that in an inexpensive way. So my books are not expensive. If they are expensive, it's because they're printed in color, and the color printing is ridiculously expensive. It shouldn't be. So I have 2 books, I think, that are printed in color that have a high price because of that. But my academic papers are widely available. If somebody wants it, I give it to them for free. The books are inexpensive. I have a blog post. There's 600 pages, 600 blog posts that are free. So my working objective is to document everything I've learned and share it with other people, so that when I'm dead and gone, people will have, what's up here, because I cannot download it. I cannot take this thing and download it to my hard drive. So, there it is. It's a lot of effort to read it. You can, but you can search it as with the computer, do text search. But
it's a legacy construction.
Yeah, exactly. And but basically, social media is not a good space for dialogue or learning. That's the bottom line. I mean, you're a lot better off reading, a good book about a Lean or TPS or something related field like that to learn more, or engaging with your people rather than to spend time on social media. But it's like a bit of a addiction or attraction. It attracts people because it's a way of understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not a good place to learn and interact.
So, Professor, last but not least, what is the message you can leave for the beginners? People who are searching from books or from blogs, or even are not searching anything or hearing from others. What your message for them?
My message would be, if you can go to the primary sources, read Ono's book, go to the original sources. I mean, one of the problems we have today is there's so much information. It's difficult to sort out the good information from the bad information. And of course, there's information in between good and bad. But to really understand something, whether you're talking to a person or reading a book, or it's an academic journal paper or something like this, it's a real challenge to figure out the good from the bad, or the good from the stuff where there is a real learning compared to the stuff that's just sort of noise. And so I would say always try to go to the primary sources. If you're interested in scientific management, you should read Fred Taylor and Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, and you should read Henry Gantt and these kind of people. You can read about the efficiency engineers too, but you're better off reading about what Frederick Taylor wrote and so forth. If you're interested in lean, we should read Ono's work. You should read a book by A.G. Toyota that he wrote. There's other books I forget offhand, but if you can find those used books and so forth, read those things. Then you have to sort out the contemporary authors that they know what they're talking about. And some people say it could be me. Some people say it's not me. Some people say it's somebody else or whatever. But you have to go through this information and sort through it, whether it's talking to people or printed or now video, audio podcast. It's a challenge. I would like the beginners to understand and what human-centered management is. Progressive management is human-centered management. Classical management is not human-centered management. It's money-centered management and wealth-centered management. And I'm not saying money is bad or wealth is bad, but when you have too much of focus on the money or wealth, you start to have a negative impact on humans and society and the planet. So I would like beginners to go to original sources, go to good sources of information, put what they learn into practice, develop a human-centered management practice, have make some demand that current leaders transition from classical management to human-centered management, lean management, TPS. There's a lot of dissatisfaction out there with the population at large across the world. They want something different in terms of leadership and management. And so they want something progressive, and the planet needs some progressive way of leading and managing organizations, not business, but also government and so forth.
Yeah, it's a good advice for everybody. I used to say that I like one text. It's from the Bible that we need to retain what is good. Read, see, and search for a lot of things, but just retain what is good. The other things we can let it go.
Right.
Yeah, Professor, I would like again to really thank you about this conversation. I think it's a very good opportunity for the Brazilian guys know the Professor Bob Emiliani, and people can go into his site and see what are the books and blog. He has a lot of message there. We have a lot of articles, a lot of content that we can also see the good things and try to retain there. If people like scientific, people will see things there. If people like TPS, like Lean,
Yep.
we will see. The main thing that I talked with my students is we need to go out of the bubble that we live.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we live inside one bubble, so we need to think different and try to see things different.
Yep, I agree.
It's the main thing. I really appreciate your time and attention to do this conversation with this crazy guy from one podcast and called you from a LinkedIn message.
Yeah, that's fine. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate. I will talk a little bit in Portuguese before we leave, and I go back with you.
Okay.
Pessoal, essa foi a nossa conversa com o professor Bob Emiliani. Fique com a gente, nós vamos ter mais algumas conversas com alguns gringos aí. Até a próxima e muito obrigado.